Well, gee golly gosh, slow news week, huh? Is this what it was like with Sega leaving the console market? Because I was too young to register any of that. I had a Dreamcast and I loved it, but I had no idea any of that was going on. I was way, way too young. But for me, I remember picking up my original Xbox with my dad in Best Buy, and to think that I'm going to live through them potentially exiting the console business in a meaningful way is crazy to think about. And Xbox has watched these rumors spiral for weeks and weeks and weeks, which was largely irresponsible because there should have been some moment somewhere to put out the fire, stop the bleeding, but they let it keep going and going and going. And it was last night, February 4th, that just everything on social media came to a head. I was sitting here just pounding out my game script for like 5-6 hours. My Discord mentions light up. What happened? And I caught up. And like I said, Xbox may be leaving the console business. Phil Spencer wrote on his Twitter account, "We're listening and we hear you. We've been planning a business update event for next week where we look forward to sharing more details with you about our vision for the future of Xbox. Stay tuned." And the way I look at it is that since there was no manner of any kind of putting out doubts or fear or trepidation about the future of the platform, it likely means that there is truth, strong truth, to the rumors and the reports that have been ongoing. Not just that Xbox games are going to PlayStation and Switch, which I think people were kind of ready for with the smaller games, but major tentpole exclusives that you thought were building blocks for Xbox are leaving the platform sooner than I think anyone expected, sooner than anyone I think who's within the ecosystem deeply is comfortable with. The meltdowns on social media have shown us that much. And they're going to PlayStation. I'm talking games like Indiana Jones, Starfield, and much more. We're going to get into a plethora of reports here. So let's not delay any further, right? Let's begin at the top with, I think, what was the backbreaker. And it came from Tom Warren of The Verge with an article titled "Microsoft Weighs Launching Indiana Jones on the PS5. They say Bethesda's upcoming Indiana Jones game is also tentatively set to launch on Sony's PlayStation 5 console. We got our first glimpse of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle during the developer direct last month, where it was announced for Xbox and PC. A source familiar with Microsoft's plans tells The Verge that Bethesda is also considering bringing it to PS5. A new multi-platform approach for certain Xbox games is emerging inside Microsoft, we're told, with the company weighing up which titles will remain exclusive and others will appear on Switch or PlayStation 5 in the future. Indiana Jones appears to be part of this new wave of multi-platform games. While Bethesda will launch its Indiana Jones game first as an Xbox console exclusive, it's currently set to have a rather short period of exclusivity, we're told. A release for PS5 is being considered for some months later, with Bethesda tentatively targeting a December 2024 launch for the Xbox and PC versions. Exact timing and platform availability for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle could change, particularly as Microsoft's new multi-platform approach for Xbox games hasn't been finalized. And they mentioned here about what's going on with Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush, which were the first reports of Xbox games going to PlayStation. Yeah, when you think of major IP games coming to Xbox, the first kind of shadow of doubt appeared with Blade. When you looked at what was happening with Blade, there were question marks about its exclusivity because there was no comment from Bethesda, no real comment from Xbox, no Game Pass logo. The big question was, why are you taking away from your own excitement? And I think we now know why, because there were discussions ongoing even during that point of what will be exclusive and what won't be. What I think is going to be the most fascinating to watch incompetent communication Xbox tackle, because I like some of the things they've done, but man, their communication for years has been garbage. And I am going to watch with my popcorn in hand and see how they attempt to explain to the purchaser how some games will be exclusive but others won't, what the rationale is, why there's even a reason to own an Xbox at this point, and how many people are going to be so pissed off when we talk about Starfield here and how it leaves Xbox. I feel bad for the people who bought into Bethesda Game Studios and said, you know what, that's a compelling exclusive right there. I got to pick that up. And they buy their Series X or their Series S for that game. And then you see this a couple months later. That's got to sting. But when you look at the quarterly earnings reports, you see how content and services were up, mostly thanks to Activision Blizzard. And the game revenue was up, mostly thanks to Activision Blizzard. But guess what only went up 3%? Console hardware sales. And I think it just shows that with console hardware being in line with the sales of the Xbox One right now, It just shows to me that big games like Starfield or the knowledge of Activision Blizzard being injected into the ecosystem moved a lot of games and moved a lot of subscription services, but it didn't move many consoles at all. With that, I believe Xbox is done pretending they're in the console war, which they have been losing 2-1 for 2 generations straight now, and are going headfirst in a direction that makes more sense for their business, which is something that I don't think many people are ready for. If I were to have a theory, bit of speculation here, my read of the situation is that there is a little schism ongoing inside Microsoft right now. I see the bean counters like your Satya Nadella, your Tim Stewarts, versus like the gamers in Sarah Bond and Matt Booty and Phil Spencer, the faces that people know and love. And when I look at comments that Phil has made versus what Tim Stewart has said in the past, where Tim Stewart especially was like a fire starter in this sense, and then Phil pretty much erasing his comments shortly thereafter, and then Satya Nadella, where he said that Xbox games are coming to Xbox and consoles, which pretty much spells out what it is. I see that Microsoft is winning over, because as Xbox has climbed the ladder as now the 3rd biggest part of Microsoft, they see money in it, and it's time to extract all the value out of it. That doesn't make it okay, so to say. I'm not afraid to say that I think Xbox is making potentially an Xbox One era level mistake here. I do think the future is without a walled garden, but much like with the Xbox One, I also think Xbox is way ahead of the curve on this one. I don't think they're ready. And certainly I think fans were pretty willing to accept that this would be their fate. Like eventually Xbox games are going to leave the platform thanks to Game Pass, and how to sustain that you need to get more subscribers and you have to go to every service, every screen, every piece of hardware imaginable. But I think that pivot people were expecting was going to come at the end of the generation when a vision had been complete. A mid-generation overnight pivot after one of your biggest years of continuous exclusives, from Forza to Minecraft Legends to Hi-Fi Rush to Starfield, and yes, we'll even throw Redfall in the mix, to now this, says to me that the higher-ups looked at some sort of number or lack of sustainability and said, yeah, we're going to lay a ton of people off, we're going to reorganize this gaming business, and we are going to build this thing to last, and we are going to do that by selling it to everybody. I have some more thoughts, I'll get into that shortly, but it's not just IP that you never knew about that we're going to be exclusive on Xbox. It's like long-standing stuff, such as Video Game Chronicles reporting here. Microsoft is reportedly considering bringing Gears of War to PlayStation. That's according to Giant Bomb's Jeff Grubb, who was elaborating on recent claims that Microsoft is working on a new initiative to release more Xbox exclusive games on other console platforms. Quote, the other one that I've heard that's definitely under consideration, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but it's in talks, is Gears of War, end quote, Grubb said on Monday. Grubb also said that Microsoft was at one point planning to publicly explain its new initiative at the end of February, but that given the mounting speculation, there's a chance of an official announcement could be brought forward, which we just talked about at the start of this video. So yeah, I'd say there's 3 series that are synonymous with Xbox. My lovely co-host, Lord Cognito, always called it the burger, fries, and shake combo. Halo, Forza, Gears. And the idea of those leaving the platform definitely spells the end of Xbox, as it is the end of console wars. Gears of War, I know it may not be as, if you will, prominent or recognizable as Halo. That going to PlayStation, throw in the white towel. That's it. And the problem with that I have is some people will receive the lack of desire for Xbox to go anywhere as like this fanboyish clinging on to what once was. No, Xbox, don't go. I love you. There's 2 points I'd like to make with this. The first being that when it comes to Xbox and their exclusives, I get why they need to exist, because it gives your brand identity. When you dissolve those, then there is less competition. Look at what PlayStation's doing right now. And I don't say this to drag them unnecessarily, right? But I look at what they're doing now with their focus on remakes, remasters, very little new IP, and you look at the era during PS4 with like Gravity Rush 2 and Concrete Genie, and you look at games like Puppeteer, you look at these types of games from PlayStation that were really fun, creative new things, and they're scarcely seen. Maybe Astrobot, when it launched on the PS5, is a great example, but otherwise, nothing else. Nintendo is about Disneyifying all of their IP. Here's the latest Mario game, the dude you've known for over 30 years. Here's a new spin on Zelda. Here's another broken Pokemon game that you're too baited by nostalgia to ignore. And they're just going to keep rinsing and repeating that with scarcely new IP. The exciting thing about Xbox being involved in a meaningful way, not just as a games publisher, but as a platform holder, is they were forced to evolve and create new, exciting IP. And by acquiring those studios, which was something that I was definitely behind, those studios would be able to chase new and exciting visions that previously were unthinkable because they were limited by traditional games business. That was what was exciting for Xbox. They served as a barrier breaker in ways that creativity could be unlocked, especially when you account for Game Pass, a way to monetize games and fund games, particularly in the AA and indie space. Maybe AAA, the game would be different, but instead they were going more internally focused by taking their own games instead of paying for other big AAA games to put them on the service. So it seemed like things were finally coming to fruition. And when you look at now where they're at, and if they're going to make an exit, it is going to make, I think, gaming worse in some ways. I think that when you remove that direct competitor from PlayStation, who is already sitting nice and cozy in an Apple-like demeanor, it will get worse. What is going to provoke them to want to do anything more, especially when Xbox is making their games, right? Even if Xbox is making way more money, I truly feel, and I don't know how diehard PlayStation fans are going to feel. I'm seeing, again, meltdowns all over on social media, so it's been a game of extremes from my input. But I do feel like everyone loses in this instance. I don't think Xbox is perfect. I think they suck in a ton of ways. No doubt about it, as we've highlighted on this channel. The way they've handled some of their primary first-party games is embarrassing. And the fact that they did all this damage to themselves and it could have been avoidable is perhaps the biggest shame of it all. But I feel like having them in the industry is necessary because I fear who fills the void. Is it Apple? Is it Tencent? At least Xbox has a foothold in gaming for generations. I worry about what happens if they leave. Lastly, we have the reports of Starfield, which come from Xbox Era, where they write, for many weeks now, rumors have persisted regarding Microsoft's intentions to release a number of first-party games, namely Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves, on rival platforms, according to our sources who have asked to remain anonymous because they were not authorized to talk about company plans. That list of games also includes Bethesda Game Studios' Starfield. According to sources, we understand that currently Microsoft are planning a launch for Starfield on PlayStation 5 post the release of the already announced Shattered Space expansion for Xbox and PC, which is on target to arrive at some point later this year. We've also been informed that Microsoft have made additional investments in PS5 dev kits to support ongoing development efforts, adding further fuel to the fire. There could be some level of rationale to this because some Bethesda games were in development over on PlayStation and then Xbox came in and X'd them down, and so they may be just double dipping on those investments that were previously made to ensure that they maximize their profits. But I think that's a bit of copium for those who are really trying to hang on to any sort of hope here that they're not going all third party. What this says to me, though, which is perhaps the biggest slap in the face of all, is that Xbox fans, you get to kind of beta test. You get the game at launch. You get all the patches as they gradually come out. And PlayStation 5 fans who didn't have to wait for, in many cases, you know I love Starfield, but for many people who didn't like Starfield, they get to wait on PlayStation until the expansion and a full year's worth of updates drop. And it's all packaged in together. And then here you go, PlayStation. And that perhaps no amount of money made can really help a consumer understand why you would do that to them if they're a supporter of your platform. They should be getting the best experience, and just like how PlayStation wisely does it, the people on PC just get the late experience. Continuing on, Xbox Era writes, as the already existing rumors have suggested, the idea of bringing first-party titles to competing console platforms marks a massive change in strategy for Microsoft, and from what I understand, it's not been without fierce internal debate on this new direction. Releasing Starfield on PlayStation 5 contradicts the original statement around exclusivity made by President of Xbox Sarah Bond during the Xbox and Bethesda Game Studios Summer Showcase of 2021. Quote, it's awesome to share with you for the very first time one of the most anticipated games in the world from Todd Howard and the team at Bethesda Game Studios, a groundbreaking game, and yes, it is exclusive. According to our sources, Microsoft's senior leadership team have reportedly debated the various pros and cons of releasing more of their exclusive software elsewhere and internally. Not everyone is necessarily happy with the decision, but recouping the potential money left on the table by releasing elsewhere has arguably won out. What this says to me is prepare for shocking exits if this is the direction they're heading in, right? Because what it sounds like is from, I'd say like 2018 with really the start of Game Pass in a meaningful way and on was like the Phil Spencer vision. And I think a lot of that did get held back. I'm not making excuses. A lot of that did get held back by like the wait for merging and acquisitions and what would result from that. And this sounds like, hey, Phil, taking the wheel here. That's not working. and we are leaving lots of money on the table. We're making money at Xbox, but we could be making more and more money. So we're taking the wheel and we're going to steer it from here. And when it's no longer your vision, I'm not saying that Phil Spencer will leave. Who knows about that? But I think major faces at Xbox will leave as a result of this. When they stood on those stages in 2018 and 2019, announcing the acquisition of the likes of Obsidian and In Exile, Compulsion Games, Playground Games, and so on, and they said that they're looking to build like a big first-party portfolio. When you make that commitment during an era of PlayStation 4 exclusive dominance thanks to first party, the message is sent that you're trying to do what they're doing, and to now switch that out and pivot away from what traditional gaming has been can either be some of the most clairvoyant shit we'll see in gaming if Xbox ends up winning out and this is where everyone else is heading much sooner than we actually realize and they're just getting ahead of the curve, or an absolutely destructive turn that will destroy the entire brand itself and naturally lead to the exit of many people and potentially, I wouldn't say the death of Xbox because Microsoft is a $3 trillion company, but optically, yeah, this could spell the death of it, which we'll see how much of an impact that has on the bottom line. But when you have big third-party games like Call of Duty, does the Xbox brand association matter as much when people just buy Call of Duty without thinking at all? It's just some food for thought, but I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts nonetheless on all of this, ladies and gentlemen, because it has been a pretty interesting week thus far. Naturally, the story will develop with further reports, and we'll see come, I'm guessing, next Monday. It's crazy they're waiting a week, but Godspeed, Phil and team. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see the PR spin on this, and so I will wait with bated breath to see what happens. But ladies and gentlemen, I leave it to you. What do you think about everything going on in the world of Xbox? Fire away. And with that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.